Yes, please.
I'd like to come back to rationality. And you said that some people that talk in media and so on are kind of sure about their theses. I mean,
They're what? Their thesis, yeah.
They do believe that the market is rational because of their models, right?
Yeah.
As you said. So I think they are not sure about conscious about the fact that it will change in some time, right? So, it's like they create a model for a period of time.
Yeah.
But that has started like 2 weeks ago and will end in one year or something. So even our professors, if we ask them why, they said it depends and don't. So it's also the answer. I don't know what assumptions I should use to focus on, right?
Yeah.
So it's like no economist will say that his thesis is rational, and he's sure about this, I think.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Again, first I'm going to answer in a light way, and then I'm going to answer in a more serious way. Whenever they ask the economists, for example, I get this stupid question asked all the time, what should I invest what will be the future price of gold, for example? Yeah. I always deny this question, but some of my colleagues don't, and this is the way they do it. Of course, I don't know what the price of value will be next year. Don't be silly. I don't have a crystal ball, but 3.4. In between that, they use a lot of, let's assume that 3.4. So, of course, every journalist skips the first 95% because that's nonsense and says, okay, analysts estimate the price of gold to be 3.4 in 2 quarters. So that's the sort of a funny answer. Now the serious answer. There is, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars going into the research of the future price of petrol or crude oil, which is, in a way, sort of simple. Easy demand, easy supply, should be very easy to see in the future, no close substitutes, demographics also able to calculate in the future. So this should be a very easy case, unlike the price of gold, for example, which has many substitutes and many sort of uses, but petrol should be simple. Still, nobody came up, and rest assured, if somebody kind of cracks the code, then he would be a millionaire immediately, or she. And millions of hundreds of dollars are invested into this, and it never materializes. So if, this is my advice to anybody who is a prophet, if you ever happen to hit a right prophecy, the best thing is to never prophesy again, because it was accident. This is the very famous case by this Goldman Sachs prediction of the the prices of oil. There was this guy who said, the prices of oil will go up, and they did. And so he was suddenly a god, and they asked him a second time, okay, what now? What now? Now it's 80 a barrel. What will happen? Oh, it will go to 200. Oh, okay, 200. Of course, 2 weeks later, it went down to 60 or something and stayed there. So, his folly was not the first prediction. His folly was the second prediction. An even more fundamental answer is, this is like wanting to know in a horse race, like wanting to know which horse will win. Of course, we all want to know it, but the moment and this is why it's philosophically impossible to do what you the question you posed. It's philosophically, not just math, it's philosophically impossible for the following reason. Everybody wants to know which horse would win. If we knew which horse would win, the whole betting would be senseless. So if we all knew the future price of gold, it would be senseless to have a capital market.
I mean, but it's in a period of time.
Yeah, okay, so if we all knew that in the year 2030, the price of gold will be, I don't know what, $1,000 per ounce, then the trading with gold would stop. If we really, really knew this. If it'd be generally accepted. But what's happening is there is a fight of beliefs. I believe because that the price of gold will go up. Well, I believe that the price of gold, this is where the fun comes in. Whenever we two trade, there has to be an absolute agreement on the price. Because if I'm selling you this pen, I cannot sell it to you for $5 and you buy it for 10. I mean, the price has to be equal, absolutely to the last millimeter. Otherwise, it's even fundamentally ungraspable. You can't give me $10 and I can only take 5. So there has to be absolute unity over the price, but at the same time, for any transaction to occur, there must be a fundamental disunity about the value. Because I will only sell you this pen if I believe that the price of this pen is higher than its value. And you will buy it only when you believe that the value of this pen for you is higher than its price.
When we look at this example, I'm working in business already for many years. And the longer I work, the more I understand the decision about the contracts, are emotional, and then cognitive. Not cognitive and then it's... So it is... And then, if we can read about imperfect knowledge economy, that people, as you said, in the models, they should be rational, but they don't understand the models, they make wrong assumption, and finally the result is unpredictable.
Yeah.
So, but we have model like we have, so I mean, the between blind one-eye man is king. But what about behavioral economics, to add this behavioral, emotional part to economy and to build something new?
Yeah, no, perfectly. We have been trained, and this is a fundamental problem, we have been trained since the time of Plato, so it's one of the biggies, so to speak, to think in emotional versus rational. In fact, why are you sitting here? Is that an emotional decision or is it a rational decision?
Emotional.
100% emotional? That's exactly the problem. We can't say. And you can go through your day and you can ask every decision that you're making, every situation you're in, ask yourself a question, is it irrational? Am I here sitting rationally because I want to promote my book? Or is it also because I love it? So it's never clear. And it's even, I think there is even a deeper trick here. Let me give you two dramatic examples. Love, marriage. Love is supposed to be emotional, and it is. Yet, of course, it's also a little bit rational. I mean, every marriage or every long-term relationship, you love her and everything, but you also know that she is not exactly poor, she's got both legs, and she has the right amount of eyes, which is 2. And that her parents are not, terrorists, and et cetera, et cetera. These things you sort of rationally know, but you would never admit them. In a way, if I told you, if I may, that you married your partner for rational reasons, it would be an insult. Because, so, in the sphere of emotions, we do have rational reasons. We don't know if it's 10, 15, or 38.6%, but we are ashamed of them, and we don't talk about it. And the same is in the other extreme, for example, I don't know, cell phones or things that I buy. If I told you that if you told me that I bought this phone because of an advertisement that was or even more stupidly, this is a rational decision, but I also love my phone. I'm really 10, 15%, I'm in love with my phone, but I would never admit that. So even in this sort of an extreme example, you see even in completely emotional areas, we do have rational components, and in completely rational areas, such as model choice or decisions about whether I should buy gold or silver, we have emotional components. But it was taboo for a long time to talk about it. And there was yet another, even mathematics, I would go as far as to say that when we were studying mathematics, it was an emotion. When I first heard 1 + 1 = 2, I remember when I was small and I was adding 2 + 3, I didn't know if I should start adding from the beginning of 2 or from the end of 2. Because in one case, 3 + 2 would be 4 if I started the beginning of 2. And if I started the end of 2, it would be 5.
What age you were?
That was, I don't know, 2. Or 3. Somebody had to tell me, no, you add up to the end of 2. 1, 2. And I learned this. It took me a little time to learn. And then because the society, every time I said 1 + 1 = 2, said, yes, here's your candy, I sort of repeated it till that emotion hardened, in a way, to the fact that today I consider it rational. But in the beginning, it was an emotion. That's why we had to study it. It's not God-given. You don't get born and, do your things. On the other hand, love, which is an extremely emotional area, after 2,386 kisses with your darling, it's not emotional anymore. It becomes, this love still exists, but it's sort of rational love, which doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It simply doesn't do anything emotional to me anymore. I will miss her very much when I get deprived of her, but as long as she's there, it's sort of automatic. Yeah, of course, we kiss her when I come home. But again, I don't mean to say that one is better. It's a man thing, yeah. I don't mean to say that one thing is better than the other, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a continuum between emotions and reason. So it's difficult.
Woman economist, then let's talk about.
Well, last I checked, I'm a male. No, but it's interesting actually. Aristotle, when he first defined economics, he was writing for ladies. If you read on economics, it's really for housewives. How this science of running a house became a male, masculine dominated area where we, for example, talk of competition, but we don't talk of cooperation.
It's abstract, nothing to do with how to run the house.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And there is many beautiful books on this, for example, by Darren McCloskey. Yeah, I mean, you can. Many have done this. You can run down a whole anthropology of how economy is sort of very, male, phallus-oriented science. It is not embracing. In businesses, 90% of the time, what you do is you cooperate. Only 10% you compete. Yet we always talk about competitive economics, not cooperative economics. I think if ladies would be in charge, they would more look at it from the. I'm not worried. Yes. To forecast. Can we switch? If you can just speak loud because there is this air and I can poorly hear you.
I would like to come back to the forecast for a moment. If I understand well, you don't really believe in the forecast.
No. I believe them. This is the problem. It's a belief. No, not a problem. It's not a fact. It's a belief. As long as we treat it like this, like a prophecy, then that's cool.
So this is the way how you manage to work as an economic advisor?
I don't do future. I don't do future for my bank. I don't do future for the media. I think nobody should. I think we would be better off, and that's the point of this book, we would be better off without these forecasts.
So you managed to do your work without forecasting, actually. And you
Absolutely, yeah.
To do it also in case of being the advisor of listopada.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you do it?
Well, do you know what's going to happen to you tomorrow? Can you manage to live your life? And okay, to give you a little bit even more radical example, GDP. Okay, that's the meta statistic. But when you transpose it into, everybody's interested, but when you transpose it into your personal area, it becomes irrelevant. So your personal GDP, did it increase or decrease last year?
Ask for what?
Remain constant.
0.0? Are you kidding? Seriously? You don't know? How many of you know whether your personal GDP went up or down 2010 to 2011? You? How much? By how much? Come on, up. How much? No, exactly. To the decimal point. I mean, come on, if I do a prediction, GDP will go up about, I don't know, 50%, everybody will laugh at me. I have to be very precise. That's the trick. When I don't know the answer, I give it to the last decimal unit. If they call me from the media and say, what's the GDP going to be next year? I would say, I don't know, plus, minus, somewhere between -2 and 6. There we go. Oh my God, you're an idiot. Oh, sorry, I apologize. 3.21. Oh, okay, thank you. Bye.
But you can calculate.
Exactly. It's very easy, but none of you gives a damn. And that's exactly my point, nor do I. You can find it in 5 minutes. Just look into your, well, assuming your tax return sort of follows your real income. You just look into your tax return and you divide one by the other. This is extremely simple. That's exactly the point. But we do not care. But then when it becomes GDP of Poland, completely irrelevant in your life, much more relevant is your personal GDP, then some magic happens and it becomes a reason to start a war. This is what's happening with Greece. But on a personal level, we don't give a damn. And that's exactly sort of the lure of economics. I can perfectly say, yeah, I expect GDP to grow by 2.3%. That's a safe guess. But what good is this to me? I can I can do all fiscal and all monetary policy even without that. But it will have to be safer fiscal policy, safer monetary policy. It would not allow me to edge it so much. I would have to be somewhere here.
So we don't do forecasting, but we do some kind of positive work, not normative.
No, I do normative economics.
But when you work with clients, with Havel, you do positive. You say, for example, you advise how should it be.
That's normative.
And that's normative.
Should be is normative.
I'm not an economist, excuse me.
Yeah, no problem.
But you advise how should the system work, yes?
Yeah. And that's a normative endeavor. The system should work better, it should be more just. Those are normative statements. And that's fine.
That is how the whole science of economy should be. Without the quest work, or is this how you think it should work?
How do we do it?
That you should do the normative work.
Well,
Without the modeling.
yeah. In fact, it is already normative. The only thing we have to do is to admit it. I'll take the last question and then I'm afraid we're running out of time. Yeah.
I think the last remark.
Oh, sorry, you also wanted to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
The last remark actually proves that the economy to some extent is normative, as you said. And going back to this discussion and debate whether it's positive or normative, I would just like to share my experience. Because right now I'm writing a PhD thesis and it's really good, interesting topic. But because of belief that good piece of work should have very strong mathematical background, I'm still thinking how to put everything in numbers and to make it, to produce some good mathematical model to explain all the things that I actually would do better in words. But just because of belief that it should be mathematical and it should be proved in this way, and I wonder how many of you are facing similar problem. And another thing is because I'm teaching macro and microeconomics to students.
You're teaching? Yeah.
I'm teaching, yes, and I find it really difficult to explain how exactly these models work, taking into consideration 10 assumptions. And just imagine that it is real, but just assume that everything happens at the time. But finally, as a result, analyzing the whole models and everything doesn't make really sense to me as personally, but I'm still continuing to make it because of I'm economist. Yeah.
There is a beautiful joke about this from the Czech communist regime, that there's two teachers of Marxism and Leninism, and one comes to the other and says, listen, I've been teaching this Marxist theories for 20 years and I still don't understand them. They don't make any sense to me. And the second says, well, why don't you take a bottle of wine and, tomorrow come to my home and I'll explain it to you. And the second says, you idiot, I can explain it too, but I don't understand it. So I think this is sort of the problem. To explain it, that's easy. Everybody can do it. If you want me to employ, steroids and Martians and ghosts into it, no problem. Yeah. And you even said it. I don't believe it. Alternatively, you could always also say, I believe it. I believe these models. And you also said, I don't believe them because I don't understand them.
Well, I understand them personally, but they are so...
or they don't make sense or something?
Yes, they are senseless. That's the problem. I really understand it because they are simple, yeah? You put here something, something here, something is happening, this depends on this, and it's easy to understand, but it's because of assumptions, it doesn't make any sense. It has nothing in common with reality, that's the problem.
You have to bring the peace to the readers.
Yeah, but we are looking at the whole process and different things that are happening in reality, just as pictures, just.
And even notice that these calculations are completely useless. Because at the end of the day, you come up with the star thing, but what have I really calculated? You can really employ these calculations only in a very abstract way. Now, let me actually, this reminds me of Alfred Marshall. The whole demand and supply thing was invented by Alfred Marshall. He also wrote the Principles of Economics, which was, before Samuelson, really the Bible of economics. For more than 50 years, he was also the teacher of Keynes. And he first used mathematics in economics, but in the following way. He, first of all, very famously said, burn the mathematics. I don't know if you heard about this. He wrote a letter to his friend explaining exactly what you speak of. He said, it's in my second book, it's really quoted word from word. It's absolutely stunningly interesting. He said, Alfred Marshall's writing this to his colleague teacher. Use English. If it's helpful, use mathematics. 3, burn the mathematics. 4, if nothing remains, the method is wrong. And he used mathematics only I went through the book and there is, now I don't know exactly, it has around 600 pages and in it is around 20 graphs. Compared to Samuelson, where you have more graphs than pages. And the only way he used mathematics was in an appendix. And it was sort of with this sort of rhetoric, for idiots that can't understand it in proper plain English, for autists, there is the appendix and you can do it in a mathematical way, but otherwise for normal people, English is enough. And my last comment to your observation is, mathematics, we say it's a different language, and I take that, I think that's fine. And I'm not fundamentally against mathematics, I'm fundamentally against overusage of mathematics. And this is the problem with mathematics. If I'm speaking to in Czech, or if I start speaking to in Polish or in German or in English, the topic of my discourse shouldn't change. But if I'm using the language of mathematics, the topic of the discourse changes. Because there, for example, I cannot talk about love in mathematics. So that's the problem. If I'm talking in plain English, and if I have to translate it to mathematics, the discourse changes. And I will end with this, maybe if I may. We have values in life. Some of those values have a price, a number. Others do not have a number. So this has a number, and I don't know how much could this cost. 6 zloty? 2, okay, good. 2 zloty. Okay, I open, and I drink a little bit. You can't sell it anymore. So now it doesn't have a price. Why? Because I touched it. So
In this environment.
in this environment. So some values in our life, and this is a true value. I mean, having bottled water is a value, and I'm ready to pay 2 zloty for that. This is a value that has a price. This is a value that has a price. This is a value that has a price. There are also some values that do not have a price. Friendship, clean air, love, aesthetics, many things. Now, no matter how sophisticated your mathematics is, if you're running down your mathematics on this sort of, I don't know how much of it, is it 30% or 20% or 5%? Are the 5% more important than the 95%? That's also possible. No matter how sophisticated your mathematics will be, your results will always be leaping on one leg because simply you're not putting everything into the equation because you cannot. It's like paying for a bill without the main course, because we don't know how much the main course costs. So that's the problem with mathematics, I mean with economics and mathematics, is that by applying mathematics we automatically limit the scope. We become more exact, yeah, but we of course come up with results such as 42. Okay. Good, okay. Thank you very much for your attention.